Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to everyone to the Pragmatics Forum. My name is Donna Fujimoto, and I am the coordinator for the Pragmatics SIG. And I'm really happy that you are here today. Actually, I think there are still people coming in, so I'm going to talk a little slowly. Also, I want to warn people that right now my computer is a bit unstable. So if there is some, if I freeze or you cannot hear me, I apologize. I was intending to call the company, but things got in the way. So we'll just have to bear with us. And Todd can step in if my computer crashes. Okay, so just a heads up on that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about pragmatics first. That our SIG has been around for over 20 years, and we have a fairly healthy membership, about 130. But one of my goals as coordinator is to widen our membership, widen what we talk about and what we learn about. And one of the goals then is to widen it to younger researchers and teachers, practical teachers. And another goal is to widen it globally. In other words, not just in Japan. And so that's why today I'm really happy that we are meeting several of those goals today by inviting Anh Ton Nu and Hin Badash. I got to know them again through online. So I think this is one of the silver linings for the COVID-19. I think, to be honest, as the coordinator, I tended to just focus on two big events for our SIG, which is the PAN-SIG and the JALT conference. And so we were not so active. But I think with the situation now, we're able to include many more people. And so today's forum, I hope, is the first step towards reaching more of those goals. So today for our forum, we have two speakers. They are both working on their PhDs, up and coming, and I think it's really important that we keep in touch and reach out to all of those who have already in the classroom or in the research labs, but also to those who are working towards this. So the way we'll run it today is we'll have one speaker and give their presentation, and you can ask questions of that speaker. And then we will move to the second speaker. Again, you can ask questions, but we would like to reserve time after that to have a discussion. In fact, so for the people who are here to also contribute what you are interested in, what you are doing. This is always the goal of a forum. So it's not simply a presentation to give out information. It is a time to share information. So today we have a good amount of time. So I think that we will be able to do all of that. Okay. So are there any questions from anybody about how we will do this forum today? Okay, so our first speaker is Anh Ton Nu. She is from Vietnam and has been studying in Australia. She's studying getting her PhD at Macquarie University. And I'm really very happy to see that she's involved with teacher education. So raising awareness of pragmatics among high school teachers in Vietnam. So, okay, An, please take the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Now let me share my screen. Yes, good morning again. My name's An. I'm a current PhD student from Macquarie University. And today I'm going to talk about the treatment of pragmatics and pragmatic teaching in the teacher training program in Australia and Vietnamese university. So I conducted this study as the initial phase of my PhD research project in order to have the general information of how pragmatics and its teaching is treated in the teacher training curriculums in Australia and Vietnam. So the data that I'm presenting today is mostly descriptive information. Before I start, let me acknowledge the financial support of Macquarie University for my study, and also express my thanks to all of the coordinator and program directors who participated in this study. So let me start with the rationales of this study. So I'm motivated to conduct this study because of the under-research of the topic of teaching of English pragmatics to pre-service EFL teachers. Despite the importance of pragmatics competence in the overall communicative competence. So in the fact that if teachers are not trained about pragmatics and its teaching, it would be difficult for them to deliver the pragmatic content to their future students. So because of this, I think it's good to take a look at the teacher training program to see how pragmatics and its teaching is treated in order to suggest some insightful implication for future teacher training curriculums. So in this study, I adopted the definition of Crystal 1997 of pragmatics. So in his view, pragmatics involves the four aspects. First of all, is it about users and their social interaction with other interlocutors and the effects of their language use on other participants when they interact with one another. Another reason for these studies lie in the lack of pragmatic input in ELT material, which is widely presented in research worldwide, and also in my recent research about the pragmatic content in English textbooks in Vietnam. So before I went on with my PhD study, I did a study for my embrace degree in which I looked at how pragmatic content was presented in the national EFL textbook in Vietnam. And the results show that there is really a lack of pragmatic input in the Vietnamese EFL textbook. On those, the ultimate goals of those textbooks is to develop student communicative competence. So you can see the gap here, even though the ultimate goal is trying to help students to be able to communicate effectively in real life, but pragmatic information is not adequately included in the textbook. So I take here one example from one page of my investigative textbook, in which you see that the speeches of complaint, giving opinion and advice is presented. So you can see that this way of presentation is quite popular in EFL textbook, in which students are provided with some helpful expression to help them know how to perform the language function. And this is followed by an example of how to use this expression in conversations. However, this way of presentations can be very dangerous, right? Because the student don't know the nuance of meanings of each expression. Let me take one example about you the better and you should. Of course, when we are trying to give advice to someone by saying you should, we have different meaning from you had better with the actual sense of threatening. And of course, when we are trying to give like advice to people who are not very close to us or at a higher position than us, the way we express our advice can be very different. So with this lack of pragmatic inputs for students, I think this would be very harsh for them to use those expressions effectively and appropriately in their real life communication. So because of these reasons, I conducted this research. So a quick look, not a quick, but a thorough look into the literature review show that no studies have been found concerning how international prospective TESOL teachers are taught English pragmatics and in teaching as Australian Teacher Education University. And in the context of Vietnam, there has been only one study by Vu 2017 who looked at how Vietnamese EFL university teachers think about pragmatic teaching and how they teach pragmatic knowledge to English non-major university students. So you can see that his focus is not on teacher education, but on the teachings of English to students in general, not student teachers. So my research questions of this phase is, how do English language teacher training program at university in Australia and Vietnam approach the teaching of pragmatic to prospective teachers? So with these questions, I aimed at examining the training content for TESOL teachers at undergraduate level in Vietnam and at master by coursework level in Australia. So the rationale for the choice of two different levels lies in the fact that at both levels, the goal is for training students into teachers of English. And by doing this, I also would like to track the professional development for Vietnamese teachers of English who often complete their bachelor degree in Vietnam and then look for opportunity overseas to conduct their master study. And in order to answer these research questions, I adopted the qualitative case study, which involved the participation of 4 course coordinators or program director from Australian University and 2 department heads from Vietnamese University. And the research instruments that I used included online questionnaire and follow-up interview. So the procedures is first, the participants was contacted to fill in the online questionnaire, and once they completed it, I arranged time to have the follow-up interview with them. For those who was in Sydney, I went to meet them to do the interview, and for those who were not, I conducted the interview via the online mode. So the online questionnaires was adapted from Vasquez and Sharplet 2009 questionnaires. And the purpose of the follow-up interviews is for in-depth detail about the treatment of pragmatics in the curricula. Okay, so let me go on with the finding from this phase. my analysis showed that there is common ground of the teacher training program in Australia and in Vietnam. So all of the Master of TESOL by coursework program as the 4 investigated Australian universities have courses that offer student teachers one opportunity or more than one opportunities to learn about pragmatics through different courses. However, the way each university treats pragmatics is different. And in Vietnam, both the investigated Vietnamese university have a course dedicated to pragmatics for student teachers. However, the time allotted for this course vary, and both heads of the English teacher training department acknowledge that some pragmatic features are implicitly embedded in the course of the course analysis or in the practical skill courses, including speaking, listening, writing, and reading. So you can see that in Vietnam, they have a course called Pragmatic course, in which the student teachers are taught about some basic theory about pragmatics. Also, pragmatics knowledge is implicitly included in other practical skill courses for the student teacher to improve their communicative competence, and in some pragmatic related courses. I will go into detail how they treat this kind of allocation in next slides. Okay, so I will talk about the treatment of pragmatic teaching at Australian Teachers Education University first. So here I talk about the length of times dedicated to pragmatics. So among the 4 investigated universities, there are 2 universities which belong to the group of 8 universities. So for your information, in Australia, they have 8 Biscuits University. And in my study, I have the participation of 2 course coordinator from 2 group of 8 university. And I also have the participant of 2 course coordinator from the 2 medium-sized research-based university. And here you can see in the slide that in the group of 8 university, they allocate just like 1 to 2 weeks or 3 to 4 weeks to the teaching of pragmatics. So you can see that the time for pragmatics is not really a lot for student teachers to learn about pragmatics. And pragmatics is not the whole course in these 2 group of 8 university. Instead, it is embedded in such courses as discourse and the language classroom, or grammars and the language classroom, or in another university, it is embedded in language and intercultural communication and teaching languages in a global context. However, in the 2 medium-sized research-based university, they have a whole course dedicated to pragmatics. This really surprised me because as an international student, when I have to choose a university to follow, I tend to choose those from the group of 8. But it seemed that in the medium-sized university, they even have quite like better treatment of pragmatics in their curriculums. Just like in one university, they have the course called Pragmatics and Intercultural Communication. Also, they have the course of Languages and Cultures in Contact. So if the student teachers are really interested in pragmatics, they can choose to take both courses or either one from the 2 options. And in another university, they also have the cross-cultural pragmatic and intercultural communication and other courses that have the cover of pragmatics for student teacher to participate in. Okay, so let me talk about the pragmatic area taught in the teacher training program in these Australian university. So in the group of 8 university, you can see that they only cover some basics concept of pragmatics, like speech as, linguistic politeness, conversation, and implicatures. This is totally understandable given the limited time they reserve for pragmatics. They can't cover more detail about this dimension. And also in terms of course time, at one university, the courses that includes pragmatics is compulsory. That means any student teacher could have a chance to study something about pragmatics. But in another university, it's just a kind of elective course. That means not all student teachers would have a chance to study about pragmatics if they don't choose to take the course. As the 2 medium-sized research-based university, both courses are elective. But because I asked the program directors, and he told me that because there's not a lot of option for students to choose. So the program were designed in a way that even though it is elective, but almost all student teachers have to take one out of the 2 options. So anyway, as University A, student would have the chance to study about pragmatics. And in another university, it is compulsory. So it can be said that at the 2 medium-sized research-based university, student teachers have the chance to study about pragmatics, not like at the group of 8 university. And in terms of assessment, I also looked at the pragmatic assessment in this university. The rationale is that, like, if they don't include pragmatic assessment in the teaching, maybe you know, the teaching should go with the assessment. That's the rationale. And in the group of 8 university, in one university, it says had no assessment for pragmatic competence. And in another one, it says that it asks the student to apply the taught pragmatic knowledge in teaching material development and data analysis. In the other 2 medium-sized research by university, they have pragmatic assessment in different forms, just like assignments or tests or open book exam. It is also, again, totally understandable because of the time allocation of pragmatic in the 2 types of university are different. So, of course, when they have more time and they have the whole course dedicated to pragmatics, they should have pragmatic assessment included in the course. And here, I just add the comments from the course coordinator. So one course coordinator from the group of 8 universities says that the teachings of pragmatics is still underestimated at her university for the moment, but they already have the plan to improve the inclusion of pragmatic in their teacher training curriculum. And the reason for their current less focus on pragmatics were just because they didn't have the staff for pragmatic. So it really surprised me because the less of focus is just because they didn't have the staff. And from the information that I have from the coordinators from this university is that they already hired a person with expertise on pragmatics to improve, the design of their curriculum to have more inclusion of pragmatics. And at the 2 medium-sized research-based university, you can see that both course coordinator emphasize the importance of pragmatics in the teacher training curriculum. That means they were fully aware of the role of pragmatics in the teacher's training. So you can see it here that like one coordinator says, I think it's a very important area, particularly for language teachers who are given the task of preparing students to engage in communicative interaction in English with speakers from a range of country and cultural background. And another one says it is extremely important for any language teachers to understand the role of pragmatics in both teacher education and practices. So here they raise a very critical point that nowadays, when we have to involve in intercultural communication, pragmatic competence is becoming even more important, because when the student have to involve in communication with people from other country, they even need to have to be pragmatically competent in order to negotiate the meaning and make their meaning across. Next, I'm talking about the treatment of pragmatics in the Vietnamese teacher education university. So here I have two investigated university in which I use the pseudonym of Central University and Northern University. So in Vietnam, the curriculums of all public university have to be applied to the requirement of the Vietnamese Ministry of Education and Training. So on the whole, they are quite similar, but each university can have slight differences in the way they allocate the time for each course and in the way they give the course to be compulsory or elective. So here at Central University, Pragmatics is an elective course. And they allocate only 30 periods for this course, in which student teachers are taught about the basic theory of pragmatics, like speech arts, linguistic politeness, and conversation in literatures. So it's just about theory. It's not about the practice of student in terms of pragmatics. And as I said before, they says that pragmatic knowledge is also taught to the student teachers implicitly through the practical skill courses and some pragmatic related courses. But in term, because like it is implicitly taught, it is not, pragmatics is not explicitly stated in the course description. So that means in the course of practical skill and pragmatic related courses, it really depends on the teacher's educator expertise. So like if the teacher educators have knowledge about pragmatics, they would include more pragmatic in their teaching practice. If not, like there's nothing that asks them to have that asks them to teach about pragmatics. And as Northern University, the course of pragmatics is compulsory, and they allocate more time for it, namely 75 periods. So in Vietnam, one period is equal to 45 minutes. So at Northern University, they have 75 periods for the course of pragmatics. And however, even though they have a longer time for pragmatics, the department head told me that the knowledge of instructional pragmatics still not yet included in their teacher training curriculum. So that means at both university, only the basic theory of pragmatics are included. So it's not about how the student teacher know to teach pragmatics in the future. And similarly, at Northern University, pragmatic knowledge is also like embedded in practical skill courses and pragmatic related courses. One thing that I would like to mention here is that unlike the teacher training curricula in Australia, the Vietnamese teacher training curricula allocate a lot of time to develop the student teachers' communicative competence. This is because at entry, the student teachers had very low English proficiencies. So that means through the teacher training program, one of the ultimate goals of the curricula is to improve the teacher training curriculum, to improve the student-teacher communicative competence. So that's why pragmatic competence could be included in the practical skill courses to improve the student teachers' overall communicative skill. Okay, so now I talk about the course types and materials. So as I mentioned before, at Central University, pragmatic course is elective. At Northern University, it is compulsory. And the way they use the course books are also different. At Central University, they relied on one very popular but very old course book called Pragmatics by Jogakuin, 1997. But in Northern University, they have the in-house materials in which they compile the material for the Pragmatics course from different resources. Now I talk about the Pragmatic Assessment. So both universities under investigation has assessment for pragmatics through different way. In Central University, you can see that they in the course of pragmatics, they could design a kind of test that students have to do in order to show that they have acquired the knowledge of pragmatics basically. So they can have multiple choice or gut feeling, something like that, at the end of the pragmatic course. And regarding the pragmatic assessment in practical skill courses, they can have some kind of speaking test in which students are assessed in terms of how they negotiate meanings, how they use speech chat in speakings, etc. And as Northern University, the same pragmatic assessment is applied. And these are the comments from the department head from Vietnamese University. So the department head from Central University stated that pragmatics and teaching pragmatics should be taught implicitly in the teacher education curriculums. By saying this, he acknowledged that currently, although they have a course for pragmatics, the knowledge of pragmatic is still implicitly included in their curriculum. And he had to admit that. He had to admit that when it is implicitly included, not all teacher educator would pay attention to it to teach the student. That's why his suggestion is like pragmatic and pragmatic teaching should be explicitly included in the training curriculums. And the department head from Northern University says that pragmatics should be more focused in the curriculums, and in the current program, pragmatics is embedded in different skills, but not really highlighted in each course. So you can see that both leaders share the thought that pragmatics should be more focused and should be explicitly included rather than at the implicit status for the moment. So with these findings, I have the following recommendation. So you can see that the finding from this phase of my study shows a positive trend in current treatment of pragmatics in the teacher training curricula in both Australia and Vietnam. Because when I compare with previous study, I see that like some study by Baskin Sharpless or Ballinger 2011, etc. It was found that pragmatics was almost neglected in the teacher training curriculum. But in my study, I could see that at least they have some, they have courses and they have some way to trace pragmatics in their curriculums. However, not all components of teacher knowledge required for L2 pragmatics and L2 pragmatic teaching are covered in the investigated teacher training curriculums in both Australia and Vietnam. So it is highly recommended that language teachers are provided knowledge of how to teach L2 pragmatics and how to assess L2 pragmatic ability. And this is my references. And thank you so much for your attention. If you have any questions, please ask, or any comments, please tell me so that I can, take notes and consider it carefully. Thank you so much.
Is from Algeria, from Macquarie University.